Hey guys, Tyler with Meeple Mountain here, bringing you another board game review. Different venue. My studio is under some renovations, the basement, so there's nowhere to film down there presently. It's all under construction, so we're going to make do with what we have because we're on a deadline. We have to get a review out, so we're going to just kind of make the most, so bear with me. Setting's going to be a little different. Table quality is going to be a little lower, but that's okay. Today we're going to be looking at the new Mass Effect board game Project or Priority Hagalas, which is a co-op skirmish game, tactical skirmish game that's like a mini campaign, almost a mini legacy game, where you're going to be going through several different missions as a team of 4 operatives in the Mass Effect universe, with, of course, Shepard at the core of your crew, and then some teammates that you'll select to kind of join you on that mission. There's going to be several missions that have and lean into that renegade paragon kind of moral virtue choices that you make that we love about the Mass Effect series, but you're going to be using very like skirmish light rules as you navigate and attempt to accomplish these missions as effectively as possible. This is a really interesting game. There's a lot packed into this very tiny box. There's a lot to see. So if you're interested in skirmish games, you're interested in that kind of tabletop Mass Effect vibe, this game's going to be really interesting for you. So with all that said, let's get to the table, let's learn how to play, and then let's talk about my experience with Mass Effect Priority Hagalas. Welcome to the world of Mass Effect, the board game Priority Hagalas. This is a cooperative game for up to 4 players, where you and your colleagues are going to be working through a mission book of series. The lore is very Mass Effect based. You are going to be investigating a crashed Discovery ship, a Cerberus ship on a planet, and you're working to prepare for your war against either Cerberus and the Husks. You are going to be working on war readiness. This is kind of a micro-campaign game that's laid out through this mission book with a series of missions and loyalty missions for your various crew that you may bring with you on your quest. Each mission is, of course, a thing that I love. It has this wonderful mission booklet where you're going to set it up with your rules, objectives, your priorities, your mission failures, enemy setups, all kinds of things right into your book. So this makes setup very simple, very clean, very easy to do. And you'll utilize this through a series of missions, and you're attempting to get the most war readiness that you can out of your missions. That's kind of how you'll gauge how successful you were as you go through your little co-op campaign that you're working through. Every mission has a various set of rules and requirements, as well as your Paragon victory condition and your Renegade victory condition, as well as your just main general condition in general. If you complete either one of these 2 options, you will gain bonuses that will affect your future missions, whether that's Paragon dice that will give you additional actions in your turns, or Renegade tokens that will allow you to modify your dice values to any result that you want or need in a particular turn. Mass Effect the board game, Priority Hagalas, is played over a series of rounds where you and your teammates will be using and splitting this tactical dice pool. On your turn, you'll be rolling them and selecting 3 of those dice to use your turn, do your actions. There's lots of different abilities that you can activate as you evolve and level up your character. That will, of course, reduce the dice pool for the next character, and so on until the last character, of course, is only left with the 3 dice choices they have. These actions will be completed, and at the end of every player's turn, so once they've used their 3 dice, a hazard card for the faction that you are dealing with, either Cerberus or the Husks, will be revealed, determining how the AI on the board works and activates and kind of moves around and what they get into. So this is kind of the layout of the first mission, the Through the Breach mission that you can have in the game. And so this will be a good kind of walkthrough of some of the basic skirmish light elements that you can see on the tabletop. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and zoom in and take a little bit of a look at a player character, the map, how it works, talk about kind of how you navigate around the board. Like I said, we'll talk about your turn, the actions that you can take with your character, and how, of course, as it's a campaign game, you will evolve and upgrade your character as you go throughout the missions in Project Hagalas. All right, here we have the main board narrative setting for the first mission in a game of Mass Effect. Now, obviously, the joy of campaign games like this is, of course, discovering things, so there are going to be spoilers here a little bit, but we're not going to dive into too many of the spoilers beyond this initial mission, so hopefully this doesn't spoil anything exciting for you guys as you move forward, and we'll kind of go from there. So, in here, again, love that we have a mission book. This is great. I the book to the correct page, and here we are. We set up some tokens to kind of populate the board. Below them, it kind of tells us what to put where, so that's even very kind of no-nonsense, simple, easy to figure out. And then on the left, you have your enemy forces, which we know we're fighting Cerberus. Their hazard deck is here that determines the enemy AI, what type and how many enemies based on difficulty. There will be some pips here. Our main goal that we have to accomplish to complete the stage, the mission, again, that Renegade or Paragon kind of bonus piece that we can do to kind of modify things, as well as a bonus kind of side objective here where we can complete this as well as mission failures and elite, or what we'd call boss enemy kind of requirements here as well. We'll talk about all of that in just a second. But this game really encapsulates the kind of simple yet deep concept where there are a lot of options, but it's very well laid out. I know how failure works, which it lays out for me. If we have to reshuffle this deck 3 times, it basically, there's a timer in the deck. If we do that, we're going to run out of time. We're going to lose this mission. Every mission always ends if Shepard, who is here with their female avatar, passes away. If they are downed, that will also end the mission automatically. Your other teammates can be downed and revived, so you are playing a little bit of a VIP game, protecting the character of Shepard. And we'll take a look at character cards and talk about all of that in just a moment. But as I mentioned, this game is played over a series of rounds with each player using 3 of the action die that are available to that particular player on their turn. You can share responsibilities of characters or switch or however you want to do it. If you're one player, you'll have to play with all 4. You always use 4 characters regardless of the number of human players playing the game. But say you were 4 different players, you would take control of your character. You will use your 3 dice to move, activate, attack, all of the various things that you'll need to do, utilizing again those skirmish light rules. And by skirmish light, I mean, of course, there is kind of hex movement adjacency. There are these purple walls here that act as effectively cover, so you can move, anyone can move through them, but they can't shoot through them. So if I was here, you know, and I'm attacking this way, they have cover and can't be targeted in that direction. There's also proximity attacks. If you move through, kind of like D&D, if I would leave, there would be attacks of opportunity if I'm adjacent to an enemy, and then am no longer adjacent to the enemy when I move. So again, there's high ground, low ground mechanics that affect movement and terrain. But again, these are very, very light kind of skirmish rules. There's also pickups of additional loot that will give you bonuses such as grenades or healing items here. There's turrets on the map depending on who you're fighting. A Cerberus has turrets that attack in line of sight down a particular line of hexes. There are objective tokens that we need to complete in order to complete the mission, as well as some fast travel locations. So again, a relatively simple, light map. A really nice thing that this particular game does, that Priority Hagalas brings to the table, is that there is a wonderful cheat sheet that walks you through all of the symbology on the board. High ground, low ground, your elevation changes, how everything works. It's all in one single page here, which is very, very helpful. Also, there is a really fun narrative book that gives you kind of those, as you choose your own adventure throughout the campaign, there's going to be small story paragraphs that add flavor and text to your successes, your failures, whatever it is, and will open up new opportunities for you. On the board, kind of returning to that, we have enemies. There are kind of basic enemy tokens, the small tokens, and the larger circles are going to be your elite enemies. The way that these enemies work, they have a shield value and an attack value, of course. If they have special abilities, they're going to be shown as little target symbols or different symbols in the middle of that particular unit. If they have, in this case, the crosshairs, that means they can attack at range. If they do not, as this guy here, this assault trooper, he does not have any symbology. He is just a melee unit, so he's just going to try to run up and attack you with a melee weapon. That's why his damage is a little bit higher. But their damage is how much damage they'll do to your character. We'll look at that in just a second. And their shield value is effectively their health, especially for small enemies. If in a round you deal enough damage to meet or exceed their shield value, this particular unit will pass away, will expire, and be removed, granting your character an XP. XP, when you have enough of it, will be used to level up and gain a new ability for your respective character. We'll look at that in just a moment. What I mean by dealing that in a round, over the course of these 4 players' turns, so using all of your 12 action dice, you'll need to deal and kind of stack damage on characters until you have overcome, met, or exceeded that shield value. If the round ends and that character, say, and this guy has 3 shield, if he had 2 damage, that damage would be removed. His shields would recharge and he would be back ready to go. So you kind of have to plan to overcome that shield value. Now, elite enemies have repetitive shield values. These 2 mechs here have 3 shield values, 3 times each. And the way that this works, you would need to deal 3 damage to, let's say, this mech here, this Ymir mech, and that would check off the first box for that particular enemy. Any extra damage would just be ignored, and we would have to do that again and again, and once we do that 3 times on this enemy, he would die, granting 1 XP as well. So he is a powerful enemy that has obviously substantially more health and tank ability than the small standard enemy counterparts. There again, of course, these mechs are the basis of your Paragon and Renegade victory conditions, so they're kind of playing into your added narrative for this particular mission. Again, I don't want to get super into the weeds, bogged down on how this works yet. Let's take a look at your character, talk about how the action dice work, and what your character board functions. All right, here we have a look at a character board, basically what you would use as an individual player in a game of Mass Effect Priority Hagalas. This is, of course, Shepard's core board. It's worth noting that, again, if Shepard ever gets downed, the mission automatically ends in failure. That is not the case with other characters. Shepard is just, of course, kind of the core of that team, right? This layout is pretty standard for every particular character. They all are going to have some base abilities that are available to them right from the start of the game over here on the left. They're going to have a list of upgradable options. Again, those in blue can be grabbed right away as you gain enough XP per mission or loyalty mission. These red symbols here tell you that you can get a skill. So as you can see, you could get a max of 5. So you will not have all 9 of your skills in this case, but you can pick and choose. And again, just like the game of Mass Effect, kind of build your character to have unique asymmetry that is interesting to you and fun for you. Again, these red options here are going to tell you what's required. There's also symbology that tells you what's required as well. So you can kind of say, oh, I want to get to this. What do I need to do to get there? And plan your kind of your build and your strategy around these abilities. On your turn, you're going to roll however many die are available to you in the strategy pool. And by that, I mean, if you are a first player, you would roll all 12 strategy die and select 3. But if you're the last player, you'd only have 3 to roll and then have to use. You'll lock these die into your various abilities to do certain things, and that will kind of progress the mission, the story, all of those things. Again, as I mentioned, every character has core abilities on the left that you can automatically use, as well as your top kind of basic abilities. So let's talk about the faces of the die, what they do and how they work. The arrows, so for instance, this guy right here will allow you to do a move action of 2 spaces. There is also a move of 3 spaces on the die as well. So either way, you would lock that into your move section, and that would allow you to move. You see that you could, of course, move a max of 2 times on your turn. You can move through friendly units as long as you don't end your turn there, of course. Again, kind of typical skirmish movement, and you cannot move through enemy units. The explanation point is going to be your actions. There's a base explanation point, and then there is the kind of extra explanation point, which is called your empowered action. Both of these are actions. They will allow you to do various actions on the board, both mission-specific unique actions if you're on a space with a mission-specific interactable, as well as reviving a teammate or using, again, your abilities or some of your special abilities as well. So for instance, we can hack a turret, or we can shoot and deal damage. Empowered abilities may or may not do special things. For instance, shoot with Shepard will deal additional damage if we have an empowered action die there instead of a base action die. Hack, for instance, is interesting because you could hack up to 2 times, but one of those has to be an empowered action. The other could be a base action. If I had 2 base action die, I of course could not hack twice because it does not meet the requirement for that die slot. Also on here we have the star symbol, which is your core ability, and we have a choice, which is a pick your own, which is a move of 2 or an action, so just a little more flexibility. Going back to the star, your core action is unique to your character. Every character has a very fun, flavorful core action. For instance, of course, Shepard is the commander and can command. You'll have these tokens, these command tokens, that you can flip to allow your fellow teammates to take additional action, so you can kind of help do the tactics and kind of navigate the terrain of the battlefield utilizing that. Again, as I mentioned, you'll get XP for defeating units. If every enemy that you defeat, you'll get an XP. You can get a max of 3 XP per mission. When you do, you're able to level up an ability and gain that ability, which again, of course, would be starting with these blue options and then working your way down, kind of a tech tree style thing to gain abilities. Do you want to be more of a healer? Do you want to be more biotic damage or violence? There's different options that you can choose. Again, there will be items that you can gain as as well on the board that can help you manage your health, do additional damage, things like that. But at its core, this is a relatively simple turn efficiency game where you're going to choose some actions out of the best options available to you, lock them in, utilize them. But regardless of whether you can use them or not, you always have to take and use 3 die to kind of conclude your turn. Once all of the players have went, that will conclude a round, and we'll kind of wash, rinse, and repeat through this. It's worth mentioning as well, after you've used your 3 die, every player will flip a Cerberus card, which is basically the AI action for the board, for all the enemies. So it is going to lay out a very kind of clear list of priorities and actions that the enemies will take. It will showcase, for instance, things like activating assault troopers. That would be a thing that kind of tells you exactly what's going to happen with that particular unit. There may be cards like this that tell you to spawn enemy minions closest to current squad mates. There's all kinds of different actions that the AI will take, which are of course determined by the deck. And there is a deck for Cerberus, there's a deck for the Husks, because of course those two enemy types play very, very differently and feel very different on the map in how they interact and want to combat you and slow you down from completing your objective. And that, in a nutshell, is everything that you need to know for what to expect when you kind of unbox or get into Mass Effect Priority Galas. Now again, we didn't go through all of the kind of outcomes on each mission, but effectively you're working to build that war readiness. So you're trying to get as prepped and built up as you can for the impending fight that you have coming up. You're trying to make some hard choices because you can't do everything. Do you kind of do the good thing and save the captives and the people that are kind of at bay here, kind of trapped here? Do you go and collect the weapons and the armory that you need to be more? There's always going to be kind of choices. You're not going to be able to gain everything through a single playthrough of this, and there's going to definitely be different endings, different outcomes based on the choices that you make, and if you're able to pursue the loyalty missions that benefit and empower your teammates as well as give you additional chances to level up your own character. So there's a lot of interesting things to unlock, and of course you can mix match your characters. There's 4 additional squad mates, not including Shepard, that you can add into your squad. So there's a little bit of variability in how you want to build your particular team, and you can swap that out as you go between missions, and that's kind of fun to feel and find different balances, because of course some characters are better at engaging certain enemy types and things like that than others. So if you have a very hacking heavy mission, you may want to bring Talia instead of a very combat, very heavy mission where you may want to bring Garrus and Car. There's all kinds of interesting combos that you can build. But at its core, this is a co-op game. The fun of this game is what you discover along the way, and if you enjoy that kind of skirmish light, like board movement placement. So let's talk about my thoughts and kind of feelings with it. So super positives. The narrative book is really fun. It's not insanely heavy, but it definitely has a lot of lore. If you enjoy Mass Effect, the narrative book is going to be fun for you. This game has a lot of theme, and it feels very much like you're playing the video game, which I thought was a really positive thing. The rule book is good. It's thick. Like, for the size of this box and everything in it, this rule book is very thorough and thick. It had a few times where I was a little curious about how some things broke down, but again, this book is 41 pages, so it is very thorough for the size of this game, and I think that you'll find the answers you need there. It's a bit of a read, but it's certainly not a John Company or Twilight Imperium level rulebook dive, so there's nothing too painful in there. It's well formulated, the English is clear, it's good, it has everything you need. But ultimately, top marks to, again, recently talked about this with another game that's coming out soon, but I love the mission book structure. I wish every game that had kind of this campaign style vibe could use the mission book structure. I love that special rules are right there for you to see each and every time. Your board is already set up. All I do is flip to where I want to go, boom, I'm ready to play. I know everything that I need to do for setup and every special rule, and I've got my terrain and everything's ready to go. It's a great touch. Same thing with your player cards. I love that these are super clear and quick and clean. Like, if I want to play Garrus, boom, here I am, I'm ready to go. I have everything I need. If I have upgraded abilities, they'll be marked, they'll be checked with a little dry erase marker that comes with the game, but everything I need is right here as I kind of run into this game. And so setup and tear down and all of those kind of tedium things that we become familiar with in a board game are not really super present here. They're as minimized as possible. And I just thought that was a really nice touch, because this lets you get into the fun of Mass Effect and a skirmish-like game without a lot of the heavy lift that skirmish games frequently can come with. So I thought that was really, really positive thing. Again, this is a campaign co-op game, so if you are not a fan of co-op games or campaign games, there's certainly things to be thinking of there, right? This isn't going to be a game for everyone. I will say I thought the table presence overall was mitigated, was light. That's not the game's fault per se. It knows what it's trying to be. It's trying to be a very cost-effective entry into your tabletop collection. It's trying to be a very quickly accessible, quick to set up game, which of course means less table presence. When you looked at the board, you probably saw all the enemies are little token chits. All of the gear, the loot, the turrets, everything is kind of very minimized, very lightly designed, very limited table presence cardboard tokens. Of course, you do have some plastic minis for your characters that you could paint up that could look very nice, but everything is kind of on the lower end scale. Now the dice are actually very nice, chunky, got some nice heft to them, but even then, from a design perspective, they're relatively bland, which is fine, but it's just worth noting. This game, you know, the theme is definitely there, the fun is there to be had, but if you're looking for this amazing, super blinged out table presence-esque thing, you know, this is not Cthulhu Wars, this is not TI, you're not getting some ridiculous pop on your table. This is really, do you enjoy the theme of Mass Effect? Do you want to play a game with your friends where you work together tactically and have some really cool choices and interactions along the way? That is where this game shines. Table presence is definitely not where this game shines. The only other thing, and I really like Mass Effect. I'm sure a lot of you who watch this that are interested in this board game do like Mass Effect. I will say they portray renegade actions as the lesser of the two options, which is arguable if you've played the games, but I certainly enjoyed how in the games I always felt like Renegade and Paragon both had pros and cons. There were genuine benefits to each, and the game, the rulebook kind of expresses that the Paragon option is a little bit harder, which that's probably true, but that it's better than really the Renegade, which is kind of your fallback option. But I do like that either way, you're gaining a benefit if you complete that bonus in a mission. You'll get, as a Paragon, this bonus die that functions exactly like your base die, but when you have it, you can actually take a fourth extra action. And so you can get up to 2 of those added to your kind of dice pool. So within a round of the game, 2 of your 4 characters can take a bonus action, which is huge. That's obviously way more efficiency. That's incredible. The Renegade tokens, everybody gets a Renegade token. So that's more tokens out on the board, I suppose you could say, up to 2 per player. But they can spend that token to switch a dice face to a value that they want. So more exact dice control, but certainly not as awesome as having, you know, a bonus action, entirely new extra action on your turn. So there are pros and cons there as well, but I would say from looking and playing through the game, the Paragon mission requirements do seem to be more challenging, more nuanced than the Renegade action. So that just is how they've packaged it in the game. You just kind of have to take that with a grain of salt. It's just worth noting because it was like, oh, that's interesting from my perspective. So overall, again, really interesting game. I love that there's the Husks and Cerberus. I certainly see the ability for expansion content, that you could add additional characters for squad options. You could add additional potentially enemy types or maps, certainly more missions. There's a lot of fun to be had here. So if you like skirmish games, skirmish light games, and are looking for something to introduce your group to a skirmish game maybe for the first time, or you're looking for just something in that Mass Effect universe because you love the theme and the lore and want to explore more of that with characters that you know and love, I would encourage you to check out Mass Effect, the board game, Priority Hagalas. It's a lot of fun. Again, it is light. You guys could probably play through the entire campaign in a long day or in a weekend gameplay session. It's not super long, but there's a lot of fun little things to discover and have fun with along the way, especially if you like the theme and the lore. So I'd encourage you guys to check it out. It will be launching very soon. Again, going to be a cost-effective entry into your collection that I think you guys will find a lot of pleasant surprises along the way in the campaign. So I want to thank you guys for checking this out. I hope it gave you a good perspective on kind of what to expect and find when you open the box, how this all works, like what are the mechanics, what can you expect to see, what are the component qualities, what are the thoughts on kind of the quality of the rulebook, because this can make or break a game one way or another. And I thank you guys for kind of dealing with a different setting, not quite the same setup we normally use, but I hope it still was able to give you guys a look at this game and get you guys excited about new content coming to a hobby that we all love. But if you like what we're doing, please let let us know. Let us know something else you'd love to see reviewed in the comments below. We're always looking to film and create new content because just like you, we love board games. But I want to thank you guys for coming to Meeple Mountain. I hope you guys will continue to do so. And as always, happy gaming.
Thanks for checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out these links to find some other games you might want to bring to the table. This is Tyler Williams, signing off.